you want to be successful? Do you want to grow your business? Do you want to dominate the day? Then you're going to need Big Skip Energy. Mark Milam, welcome to the Big Skip Energy podcast. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, Skip. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, man. So, Mark, for all the listeners out there who don't know you and what you're all about and your story, do me a favor. Share a little bit about yourself, would you?
Okay. I'll try to start at the beginning, but keep it brief. So I got into
All right.
mortgage in December of '05. I was an airline pilot in my prior life. I feel like everybody in mortgage has a prior life. That was mine. And got into the mortgage kind of in the heyday there. And then obviously went through the Great Recession, made the switch from independent mortgage banker to banker, and was in the banking world really '09 all the way through 2020. And after the pandemic hit, found myself really just at the mercy of a bank and thought to myself, we keep going with this team and we keep building what we do at other shops. Why can't we just do it for ourselves? And so
Right.
in September of 2020, we launched Highland Mortgage, independent mortgage banker based out of Atlanta. And it's been a great success story since then. It's been a wild ride getting Fannie, Freddie approval, getting up and running. But we're now closing in on our first, I think, right at around 100 million in funded volume this month, which was a big goal for us to reach that. So to get that inside of 5 years in existence, we're pretty pumped. We're excited, and I'm still out there originating mortgages every single day. I'm president of the company, but it's really my bread and butter to be out there talking to people about escrow accounts and interest rate, all the fun stuff that comes with originating.
So, tell me a little bit about that transition, if you would.
Mhm.
So, like you said, a lot of people, let me back up. One thing about the mortgage business is that it attracts people from all walks of life, all
Yeah.
different backgrounds, everything. And you and I are both a testament to that. So,
Mhm.
because nobody grows up wanting to be in the mortgage business, right? As the joke goes. But
Yeah.
what was it that helped you transition from, or inspired you to transition from being a pilot?
Yeah, I love aviation and I love flying. The flying part of the job was great. My frustration with aviation, especially commercial aviation, was that it's seniority based and it didn't really, above a certain threshold, it doesn't matter how good you are. As long as you can pass your check ride and you don't hurt anybody, you're doing well, but you can't move up based upon performance in that career. It's a seniority based profession. And that's why I love mortgage. There's nothing super sexy about mortgage, but I love the underlying liberty of it. That if you go apply yourself, you work hard, you've got aptitude, you've got the ambition, you could be first month on the job and be top of the leaderboard. There's nothing stopping you. There's no
Right.
ceiling there to prevent you. And that was a big appeal to me of this job, that it was much more within my control of how well I did. So yeah, that was a big incentivizer for me.
I love that. And it's kind of funny because as a top producing LO, as well as, of course, the president of the company, though, you know better than anybody how many different parties there are involved in a real estate transaction. So sometimes we all feel like we have no control.
Right.
But, I think it's a testament to the fact that that's not necessarily the case. We got to control what we can
Yeah.
control. So
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love it. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit,
Mhm.
talk about nurturing your pipeline, because that seems to be the hottest topic right now. I know we have discussed it as a company and, it's been top of mind there.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the importance of it. And I want you to share a story that that I know you've told
Mhm.
before, but I want you to share it again. Let's
Sure.
just talk about that a little bit. Nurturing the
Yeah.
pipeline. Why is that so important now?
Well, in this particular time frame, when we see so many contract terminations and the inventory, while it's increasing this year, over the past couple of years, inventory has been really strained. There's just not enough homes out there. That a lot of the longevity of a given client, it can really be stretched out. I had a bunch of clients where you pull credit, that report expires in 120 days, and then they want to go looking, you got to pull it again. You might go 3 different credit pulls before someone finally goes under contract. Of course, you got the occasional ones that are lightning fast, but for the most part, the longevity of these clients when they're in their communication and dealings with you is extended in the environment that we're in. And it's incumbent upon you. So you've got to continue to follow up with them, and not just
Mhm.
follow up with them, let your CRM do the work. Follow up with them. Hey, it's Friday afternoon. I'm checking in. We haven't talked in 2 weeks. You may be going out to look at properties this weekend, or maybe you haven't. You're not, but I'm here if you need me. Stuff like that matters. Like the more
A personal
frequent
touch.
stay in touch with people.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the example I think you're alluding to. So there was this VA referral that I got for a client. And, he was honestly a little bit of a challenge, credit challenged. We had to do a little bit of work there. But what was really challenging is trying to get a VOR for him, trying to get verification of rent, because I could not get his landlord to respond to me.
Hmm.
And it was a little bit of an exercise in frustration. It's one of those clients that you look at and go, man, this is 50-50 on this guy ever being able to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
But it was his persistence that taught me a lesson because he would politely check in with me every few weeks. Hey, Mr. Mark, always called me Mr. Mark. Hey, Mr. Mark, I'm checking in. Have you heard from my landlord yet? I'll reach out to him again if you haven't. And he would just continue to stay with me on it. And hurdle after hurdle, little event after event, he was able to avail himself of a little bit of a down payment assistance program we have here in Atlanta for veterans.
Uh-huh.
And we had a hard time getting information out of that, but it was his persistence and pleasant persistence that all of a sudden his odds were going from 40% to 50% of getting a loan to going to 60, 70%. And I found myself, as we were approaching the end of 2023, I kind of found myself as much rooting for the guy as I was working for him.
Yeah.
And he kind of won me over. And we finally got to the closing table, Skip, and he's signing his paperwork. And he's a pretty gregarious guy, very friendly. And he's a military vet, so he's built like a tank. When I met him in person, he's just muscles everywhere. And he was pretty quiet, honestly, signing the paperwork. And he was getting through all of the stuff with the closing attorney, and she's explaining things to him. And she gets all of her paperwork up and leaves and goes and does what closing attorneys go and do after you sign all the paperwork. And we're trying to, crack jokes with him, and he wasn't having it. He just wasn't participating.
Mm.
Head down. She comes back in the room and says, well, we're all done. Congratulations. And he looks up and the tears are just flowing down his face. This incredibly tough, Marine military guy. And he looked up and he said, I didn't think I would ever get here. I didn't think it would ever work out for me. And I was so excited for him. I went around the table to shake his hand and he wasn't having any of that. He kind of swept my hand away and bear hugged me, hugging me so tight, his body's trembling because he's crying. And it really hit me. I was like, man, this is the difference between successful people and people who are not successful.
Hmm.
This guy would not give up. And he wasn't also going to get on anybody's case about it. He was just going to stay pleasantly persistent, work the problem, do the things that needed to be done. And he found himself sitting at the closing table. It was my best moment in mortgage that I've had in the past 2.5 years. It was the best moment. The reason I sort of rediscovered the reason to do this.
Your why. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also taught me a lot about, hey, there are times where I'm not pleasantly persistent, and I need to take a little bit of a lesson from him
Mm-hmm.
and to get to the finish line in the way that he did. So yeah, it was really inspiring for me.
I was going to say, there are a ton of takeaways from that really good story. And Mark, I think it can apply both to us, in the B2B world, you in the B2C,
Mhm.
of, staying persistent, really exhibiting the fact that something means something to you. Like in my wholesale space, for example,
Mhm.
whenever we're calling on a client, we get the door slammed in our face all the time too, right?
Yeah.
Just like y'all do with possible referral partners or whatever. So,
Mhm.
but keeping the consistent effort is really big, showing that it means something to you above and beyond. Yeah, I want to, yeah, I'd like to buy a house. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. And I think it's a big deal, man.
Yeah. I'll share one other thing with you on that
Yeah.
I think is a good takeaway. We're such a results-based business, right? There's probably a leaderboard. If you're an originator, wherever you work, there's probably a leaderboard there, and you can go look at it in real time and see how people are doing, or maybe your sales manager sends it out every Monday, whatever. It's such a results-based business. That's how we're paid. But if you can define your results, or define your success, I should say, not by your results, but by what you bring to the table, because that's a
Mhm.
controllable, right? You can't control your
Mhm.
results. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work out, and sometimes it falls into your lap.
Yep.
But if you can really define your success by what you bring to the table, the energy, the aptitude, the attention, the communication, and those are my thresholds for success. That changes the game, right? Because
Yeah.
I can totally control all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's the master of that. Now the outcome, that's a little bit of fate and luck in there, but yeah, I like the idea of defining success by what you do.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really important to remember that because a boss of mine previously said, "Hey, look, I may not have the fastest turn times, the lowest rates, I may not have the fullest product menu. I can't control any of those things, all right,
Mhm.
amongst other. But what I can do is I can tell you I will be the most responsive. You need
Mhm.
something, and I'm on the road. I'm gonna pull over. I'm gonna take the time, pop open the laptop, be sure that my customers are taken care of. I'll
Yep.
take the calls later at night. Just not when it's just convenient for me. Things that, like you said, controlling what we can control, right?
Sure. Yep.
It makes a
Absolutely.
big difference. So
Mhm.
going back to that example, I'd like you to talk a little bit about, and I know you kind of alluded to part of this in your story, but Talk to me a little bit about how loan officers can differentiate between what I call science project loans, ones that just take up your time and don't go anywhere, right?
Right.
Yeah, versus ones like you mentioned there that you know what, not only is this going to be a good transaction, but I can probably get referrals out of this too.
Hmm.
So I really saw, and anytime that this gentleman needs something else for mortgage related, who's he going to come see? He's going to come see you.
Right.
How are you differentiating between the two?
You talking about sort of differentiating between the ones you think are never going to make it out of the
Yeah,
barn and the ones that
exactly.
have a
Like,
chance?
hey, what's a waste of my time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
In all honesty, it's the partners in the loan with you. So, obviously at initial quote, pre-approval letter, or if you can't issue a pre-approval letter, you got to bring the same energy and the same attention
Yep.
that you would for the rock star client. So you bring all that to the table, you follow up, but it's really, it depends on the response I get from the client.
Yeah.
If the client is engaged and they're like, hey, thank you so much for the detail. I don't know how that got on my credit report, but I'm calling the creditor now. Can
Yeah.
we set up a
Yeah.
time to talk? Now I'm all in, right? We're going to do this
Yep.
together. If they're, if that I don't get a response from them, or if I followed up multiple times and I'm not that, that they're kind of putting me off, those are the ones where I just sort of say, hey, they know I'm here. If they need me, I'm gonna put my head down and keep working here. But a lot of it to me depends upon the engagement from the client. Sometimes if I'm not getting a lot of engagement, I don't know, maybe my email's going to junk or spam.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to the agent that referred them, and I'll follow up with
Hmm.
her or him and just say, "Hey, I've reached out to them a couple of times. I've left them a few messages. I'm not getting anything. Are you getting anything?"
Yeah.
Even worst case scenario, let's say that the client is it's just not going to work out. The takeaway that agent will have about me is that, hey, Mark followed through
Hmm.
110%. There wasn't anything more I think he should have done than what he did.
Yeah,
And
and that's
that's
of
a win,
course,
right?
yeah, that's a separate topic, right? That's referral partner fostering. And by the way, LOs out there, if you're not reaching out to the other parties involved, come on, guys, what are y'all doing? You know? So yeah, no, 100%, man. It's like when I was an originator and I would kind of like to use your example. If I said, hey, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, credit's not quite where it needs to be to get a loan right now. If you take care of these accounts, this judgment or this, that, and the other, we can probably rescore you, see where it's at.
Hmm.
They leave. They say, "Okay, we got plenty." They come back 2 hours later. Hey, I went down to the courthouse, pulled a payoff for the judgment. It's
Yeah,
like, hey, I forgot about it. I'm ready to go now. See, I think that's in line with what you're talking about.
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. So, Mark, let's shift gears again. Let's talk some communication. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I think that, and that a lot of what I deals with, some of the softer skills, right? And, you are one person in particular who does a very good job on the analytical side.
Hmm.
Big believer in tech, charts, graphs, numbers. I love that. That resounds with me.
Hmm.
That is difficult for a lot of people, but you have found a way to take what you're really good at communication wise and adapting it to other
Hmm.
people's if they're not on that same wavelength. If you're
Got it.
talking engineer to engineer, it's different. But if you're talking engineer to artist, yeah,
Yep.
maybe a little bit of a challenge.
Yep.
What do you do to overcome those and try to adapt?
Oof. Yeah, that's always a work in progress for me, and I'll brag on myself, and then I'll talk about what I don't do well. The thing I do well is the analytical stuff, which is not uncommon in this industry. A lot of people who are originators have a great math brain, and I kind of feel like I have that. I can work in Excel, I can present data, information, I can give my 2 cents on it. One thing I do, every single quote I send, I make a video so people can see my face. I can talk them through the numbers, explain to them why I think one option might be better than the other. I can go through all of that, but I have found that for a certain segment of my client base, it's overwhelming. It's
Oh
so
yeah.
much data that they can't really parse through and make sense of it. I've tried little tips and tricks. I've tried to create a table in the body of my email that distills down just the most salient points. But I'll
Mhm.
tell you, sometimes it's a personality thing. Where I'm up here in New York at the secondary conference, and I'm with my
Right.
wife, who's an originator, and I just heard her talking to a client, and I was thinking to myself while she was talking to that client, man, I don't do that. She's like diving into talking about their kids and where their kids go to school,
Okay.
and she's forming this relationship with the client that I almost never do because I don't ever go there. I'm so busy thinking about the numbers, and that client will probably may even be far stickier to her
Mhm.
because of what she chooses to do, the personal investment that she chooses to make with that client. And then the numbers are kind of the numbers, right? And she can present them however she wants to present them. But I do think, trying to resonate with everyone is a challenge because
Oh, it
people,
is. And it's impossible. You're never going to connect with
yeah,
everybody.
yeah. And there are elements where I really love, referring people over to her sometimes, and
Yeah.
sometimes she refers people back to me just because you sort of get a feel for that personality type that's
Mhm.
going to mesh well with who you are or who they are.
I was gonna say she's got that bedside manner from
That's
her
right.
medical background, right?
She
She's used to
does.
doing that, so it comes a little natural.
It does. Yeah.
So yeah, but if someone was to say, okay, like can you give an example of one really challenging time that you were trying to communicate something that wasn't clicking, and you tried something that did work?
hmm That's where video started for me,
Okay,
honestly. And not video like I'm going to record a video, I'm going to post it on social media. This is
yeah,
video specific
personalized
for
to
a
them.
client. And it
Mhm.
was when an appraisal came in low. And I was new. I was going to try to explain to them why it wasn't, because they were already putting so much down, why the appraisal wasn't going to change anything. It wasn't going to change down payment, wasn't going to change monthly payment, wasn't going to change rate. And I was like, how am I going to explain this to them? Because it's so hard for people to get their heads around that.
Oh yeah, it's a
And I was
very
like,
abstract concept.
yeah, all that's changing is your loan to value, right? You're going from 68 to 72 or whatever it was. And making the video allowed me to show them and explain it. And I just realized, man, that's one of those things that I could type 1,000 words. It's not going to distill it or crystallize it like that video.
Yeah,
And I started to realize, oh, I can leverage this with all kinds of stuff now,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Explaining an ICD or whatever it might be. I can explain an escrow account or an aggregate adjustment. I can do all that now with video, where before I was trying to type a bunch of words out into an email.
Yep. Very good. I love that. So, yeah, it's a balancing act, strengths versus what they need as the borrower, and then and try and connect the two. It's an ongoing thing, right?
hmm
So, all right, man. I know you got a busy schedule, but before I let you go, I want you to do me a favor. Now,
Okay.
full disclosure to everyone listening, I am the head of 5x5 Funding, which is the wholesale wing of Boxcar, which of course Highland's part of.
Yeah.
So I have a personal investment, I'm interested in this. Mark, share something with listeners right now that you think the people that you've worked with for all these years at Highland would be surprised about.
Ooh. As surprised about as it pertains to
Yeah.
me. Yeah. Let's see. I'm a really good juggler. I can juggle pretty well. If you throw me three of anything, I can probably juggle it in a variety of different
I feel a
ways.
sneak attack coming for that.
Yeah, yeah. I would also say I am incredibly neurotic, right? I just am constantly worried about the thing that I leave this on? Did I forget to send that email?
Yep.
So I definitely struggle with that, and it's a little bit of a thief of joy sometimes, and I fear that it leaks out
Yeah.
in a corporate setting. But it's you try to know yourself and know your strengths and weaknesses, and work on the weaknesses where you
I
can.
love it. I love it, man. All right. So if anybody wants to learn more about you, get in contact with you, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, website's a great place to go, highlandmtg.com. You can have a look at kind of who we are. We look a little bit different than the standard mortgage company, which I kind of like.
Yep.
You can give me a call, 404-395-1102. If you ever want to just talk about the industry or talk about mortgage or where we think things are going. I'm a bit of a nerd, kind of like you are. I love to get into the data of what's happening with our economy. And then my email address, mark.milam@highlandmtg.com.
Very good. Or on LinkedIn, where you put out a lot of good content too.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Very good. All right, Mark, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
You bet, Skip. Enjoyed it, man.
Thanks.